Hey everyone, this is Steve from GamersNexus.net, and we are here at PAX East 2014. This is day 2, I think. It's been quite a long start. I'm here with Chris Roberts of Cloud Imperium Games, and we spoke to Chris on Thursday about the dogfighting module, which is coming in the pending weeks or next month sometime. And check that link in the description below if you are interested. But today we're talking about FPS mechanics of Star Citizen, which haven't been delved into too much so far.
And I can't talk too much about them because we're going to do a reveal later on this year, but I can give a few tidbits of some of the cool stuff we'll do.
Very cool. So starting with the easier stuff, in FPS gameplay, sort of one of the driving forces of Star Citizen is the realism. And obviously you've got your own rules in the universe, so
right.
Just like...
So it's realistic within the universe of Star Citizen and being fun.
Just like George Lucas has his own rules. With realism in the FPS side, we've got a concern of respawning and death and lethality of weapons. Have you thought about how you're addressing that thus far?
Well, we're basically sort of respawn in the Star Citizen world. It's not sort of the insta respawn, you get shot and you're back into a battle. So kind of the way we're looking at it is sort of a more hardcore tactical shooter. So you'll get hit, you'll take limb and body damage, you kind of get a critical hit. Your sort of your team or whatever it would be in the boarding party basically needs to drag you from the front lines and then back, and they can patch you up, or if you've got a bigger ship that has a med bay, maybe patch you up a little better. And then at that point, you're fairly damaged and beaten up, and you'll have to be taken to the nearby planet or a nearby space station to get fixed up, because if you don't do it within a certain amount of time, you'll basically bleed out. So so kind of the mechanics are not that, so a sort of critical hit doesn't necessarily mean permadeath right away. You can save it. So kind of I'm hoping that there'll be some kind of good combat where it's sort of like, you've got to like covering fire, pull back your wounded comrade, and then get him off and get him help within a certain amount of time. So that's a whole extra level of gameplay. And if obviously if you do that, then you sort of save what we've been calling sort of one of our lives in the sort of whole death of a spaceman kind of analogy that we had. So I think it'd be kind of fun, but yeah, it's going to be mostly, I think there'll be a lot of tactics. I think there'll be a fair amount of cat and mouse. It obviously depends on the size of the ship that you're going to be fighting over. But in the smaller ones, there isn't really a lot of room. Some of the bigger ones, like the Idris frigate now, we've sort of built extra crawl spaces and stuff in, so you should be able to have some interesting stuff, and then you'll be able to mess around with things like gravity and also spacing areas on a ship. So I think there'll be a whole bunch of stuff that you don't normally see in first-person shooters that will give an extra wrinkle.
How frequently do you see players getting involved or engaged in a firefight on foot?
I don't know. I mean, it sort of depends. I mean, I think it would depend on kind of what your focus was. So I would think that if you were sort of focused on like capturing and taking over ships, you would do it a lot more than obviously someone that's just trading or something like that. So it's kind of hard to say. I mean, maybe 20% of the game. I mean, it's sort of I could just see some people like spending 30 or 40% of the time doing it, and some people are spending like 2% of the time doing it. We talked about having some planet-side areas that there can be some first-person combat. I think there could be some interesting stuff if we do some exploration and salvage stuff. Like think of the more the Aliens style thing where you go and there's this derelict wreck and maybe there's some creatures that will attack you, which would be kind of fun. That wouldn't be that hard for us to do. And I think it would just make an environment just feel a bit more alive.
Have you thought about the FPS gameplay sort of within the simulator environment? I think Arena Commander?
Arena Commander, right? Yes.
Yeah.
No, we haven't. I mean, Arena Commander is really just for the space combat, so we haven't thought of like Arena Commander first-person module. So we were thinking that was more just part of the game itself.
Okay.
I mean, we're going to have a standalone FPS. Like when we do the module, there'll be a standalone FPS module where it'll just be sort of combat aboard a derelict space station, and then later on we're folding it in with a dogfight where there'll be a whole boarding action that will happen on Idris. So.
And the Idris being one of the massive ships, if you haven't checked it out.
Yes, it's much bigger now than it used to be. It was
100 meters, is that right?
No, it was 120 meters, now it's 240 meters.
Okay.
So it's big.
Quite a big change.
Yeah, it's
Does it still have the turret on the back? there a turret on that one?
Yes, there was quite a few turrets on it, and a big missile bay and a rail gun on the center spine. So, yeah, I mean, that's 1/4 of a kilometer long now. It used to be obviously half the size of that. So it's pretty big. Obviously not as big as some of the bigger ships, but yeah, so it should be all right. It's got crawl spaces we built into it, so that should be interesting for the FPS stuff.
Have you thought about weapons classes yet?
Yeah, I mean, we have so we have ballistic, we have energy weapons, we have pistols, assault rifles, shotguns, electric shotguns, all that kind of stuff. Sort of grenade launcher, rocket launchers.
How does the electric shotgun function?
Well, it's just a big sort of electric charge. So
okay.
I mean, I think a lot of damage, like a taser on.
Electricity seems to work well against humans.
Yeah. So. Yeah, there's a full range of weapons. You'll be able to buy a full range of weapons on the different shops that you go around and customize your loadout. And I think any aspiring spaceman needs to at least have be packing some personal level of heat.
Sure. So customization you just mentioned. Anything you can say about weapons customization or loadout customization?
Well, I mean, we'll allow. I mean, it'll be kind of like we do on the vehicle stuff. Is like you'll have your weapons, and then to be be able to add laser sights or silencers, all that. The standard kind of like attachments you could do for weapons.
And ammo types. Any thoughts on that?
Lasers. Well, yeah. I mean, there's there's a lot of the energy types and ballistic types that we have in space.
Sure.
So it's kind of all the ones you would expect. I mean, there's laser, neutron, plasma, various different levels of ballistic, like armor piercing or different caliber sizes. So you can have, and we also have like a crossbow and stuff like that. So it all depends because some of the weapons will have downsides to using them and some of them won't, right? So you don't want to use too big of an explosive weapon inside a ship because you could, basically, create, a fissure in the hull.
The
and then all of a sudden you're decompressing, and we're gonna have decompression and all that. So
yeah, that's cool. So I haven't actually read about that. I think we talked previously actually about being able to destroy systems on the ship on foot.
Yes.
Using satchel charges or something like that.
Yeah, especially on the bigger ships. So yeah, all like bigger capital ships have like a whole complicated set of systems, just like the fighters do, but on the bigger ships they're spread out, and there's a lot of you have your engineering and weapons and helm and all the rest of stuff. So there's the ability for you to like disable parts of the ship, and there's all sort of mini game between shutting down areas, shutting down bulkheads, disabling it, going and fixing areas that other people are disabling, like taking out the power plant to incapacitate the ship and close off sections of the ship. Be able to change the gravity in sections of the ship, be able to vent areas of the ship, all those kind of things.
And dealing with gravity, I think I read there are plans for magnetic boots. Is that right?
We're gonna have so we'll have magnetic boots. We're gonna have basically like little jetpack stuff you can do, and then we'll allow you to also be pushing off and grabbing in 0G.
Any thoughts on armor yet for infantry?
Well, we have multiple levels of armor, so sort of the medium and the heavy and the super heavy style battle armor. They've all got advantages and disadvantages. The heavier stuff obviously is more sturdy and actually better for in some cases EVA, but obviously it won't be as light. You can't move as quickly, etc., etc.
Does PlanetSide play into FPS at all, or is that kind of a safe?
No, we're going to have so most of the PlanetSide is safe, but there will definitely be some areas PlanetSide that we will have some first person. We actually announced it as a stretch goal a while ago.
Okay.
And we're going to mix it up, so it won't always be boarding. So there'll be some fun stuff where, for instance, if you're investigating a deserted asteroid or derelict alien spaceship, maybe there's some creatures that will jump out and attack you, and you'll have to be armed and blast them away, alien style. So we'll have some fun with it.
Any chance for player-controlled regions on planets or asteroids?
Well, not planets at the moment, but definitely there's going to be some player-controlled persistent areas. Okay. So like asteroid bases, some space stations, and so we're trying to think about ways to have different player groups be able to own some level of real estate or control in planets or systems, so there's something for everyone to fight over. So that's one of the core parts of the persistent universe, is to have things that individuals or groups of individuals will be able to sort of fight over, and then once they have it, you've got to fight to keep it, basically.
And speaking to the HUD is one of the, to me, one of the coolest aspects of the actual space combat. Of course, you have the helmet that you put on when you start out that everyone was chanting for readily in the unveil. How about HUD for infantry?
Well, you will. So if you're wearing a suit and you've got a full like combat or space suit, then you'll have a HUD. And depending on what it is, so like the battle suits would have HUD information that would basically link up to your smart weapons. Whereas maybe if you just had a normal spacesuit, you wouldn't have all the same features. But it's all sort of meant to be sort of in-world immersion, so you don't get a HUD unless you were wearing a helmet and a suit and something that would have it.
Very cool.
If you're just running around without a helmet or anything on and got a pistol, then you just see your pistol and you have to kind of eyeball where you're going to shoot.
Do your best. So how about sensors and radars for infantry?
Well, we have sort of personal radar and sensors. They have the same scanning classes that we have for the big ship. So you know, we have different types of radar. We have heat, you know, sort of what you would call reflective, and EMF, right? So, and those are all different kinds of radars that the ships can have, and then you can shield against them in different ways or hide behind asteroids or whatever. And so we have sort of smaller versions of that for the actual player group. They use the same, so it's the same kind of radar system that we have.
A lot of, sounds like, as with most things we've talked Star Citizen so far, a lot of back and forth between counters and
yes, yeah, no, there's a bit that, so a lot of the design is thinking about like exactly that kind of stuff. So a lot of options, and there's always you know, rock paper scissors on a lot of stuff. So what I'm hoping is, because you know the game, because it's in this sort of persistent universe and it's not the Wing Commander style where you're going to be, you know, you could just go wave after Kilrathi and blow them up, and they would, you know, relatively compared to you, were kind of weak. In this, you're not. You're going to be playing against other players or other NPCs that are much more equivalent to you. So you can't have the same sort of style of combat where you can just blow 20 people up in one go and feel like a, you know, badass. So now it's going to be more, you know, almost, I wouldn't say a chess match, but you know, like when you get into a dogfight, there's definitely a sense of like how you manage your weapons, how you manage your energy, kind of some flight tricks you too. So it won't be something that it's just like get on someone's tail, bam, 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 they're blown up. I mean, there's definitely some back and forth, and we're trying to aim to do that with everything. So there's, you know, so there's a lot of thinking about it. I think you know, done right, it could be really, really good.
And speaking about the dogfighting unveil, you mentioned that player count is still being tested. That's what the alpha's for.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So no, we played, I think, on up to about 11 people before we had some instability, but on sort of our network bandwidth hasn't been optimized, so there's a lot of data going back and forth. There's quite a few things that have to go, and our cloud stuff isn't stable yet. So all of those things have to be worked on. So kind of, we definitely know that, you know, 8 players are not a problem, but obviously we want a lot more than that. So the goal with what we're doing over the alpha is we're getting it out there, and then we'll be refining and honing and optimizing and going better to try and see quite how many players we can get in one instance at one time. And then with the later sort of V2 drop with the multi-crewed ships, you know, that's folding them in, and that's a whole different level of multiplayer, because you deal differently with the players aboard a ship than you do, say, when they're out in space. So that will probably allow us to have a few more players on, because the spaceships themselves have a lot of data associated with them. Any one spaceship has already got 50 to 60 like systems already attached to them, and you know, currently right now they're all being synchronized over the network, and so we're looking at some ways to optimize that. But yeah, the whole point of the sort of dogfighting module is to work on that. So by the time we get closer to the final game, we'll pretty much hopefully have that down and working well and as optimized as possible.
Sounds good. So if you want to check out more about Star Citizen, you can go to robertspaceindustries.com.
Yep, exactly.
And still accepting backing.
Yeah, no, we're making a really big, expensive game, so we've got a lot of money so far, but every dollar goes to making the game even bigger and cooler. So.
Approaching 42 million, or have you surpassed it?
No, I don't think we've surpassed it. I think we're at 40. I haven't looked at what it is recently, but I think it's like 42 and I don't know, maybe a half or something. I mean, I'm sorry, 41 and a half. Sorry, not 42. 42 is a stretch goal where everyone gets a towel.
What's $1 million between friends?
Yeah.
So check out gamersnexus.net. Links in the description below if you want to read more about this in full article form. We'll have more videos, of course, and check out the dogfighting module, which was looked at on Thursday. And we will see you all next time. Peace.
See you next time.